All right, y'all, we're live now. We're about to start, so let's start sharing this link. Tell everyone, and you're still on time to come here, okay? There's plenty of people over here, as you can see. All right, we're about to start.
Ladies and gentlemen, is everybody able to find a link? Anybody interested in where it's being live streamed from? And if you haven't found it, let me know and I can get you there. We're gonna start in about 1 minute.
Yeah, a little bit. It kind of made me nervous, like, oh, going. I bet nobody did work.
You have a chair back there?
Yeah.
Come on. Okay, all right.
Probably for that. I don't even have one, but
I didn't watch mine. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for coming. Before we get started, Leonard Harrison, lead us in prayer, please.
Dear Lord, we want to thank you for the ability to come together. Work for each other regardless of the positions that we take, and the ability to know that it does not separate our country other than politics. We still love each other and we want to be there. Thank you in your grace. Amen.
And before we get started, I'd like to ask everybody, please, go silent, vibrate, please. Thank you. All right, now I would ask if you'd like to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please do so now. Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now I'd like to have Jim Bobby come up here and sing the national anthem. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed as the twilight's last gleaming? And bright stars through the pale sky, over the ramparts we watched, were so gathered, and the rockets red glare from those bursting in air came through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave? Oh, the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Thank you.
we get started, I'd like to make a quick comment. As a combat veteran, 5 combat deployments overseas in Iraq and Afghanistan, I like to see people exercising the freedom to remain sitting down. Keep it up. Now, moving forward with that, before we get started, I would like to have a gentleman that I consider a great friend come up here and tell us a few words. His name is Ed Brioli, running for House 63. Come on up, Mr. Ed, please, sir.
I'm an educator, but not to make a speech tonight, but talk about the education. I appreciate very much that we've got a good balance of folks from all different sectors. I taught for 12 years at the University of Maryland, taught at Campbell University just recently down in St. Correct. I have quite a variety of folks that hoping that school choice, the variety of choice in schools, what students can and their families can like today, and also workforce development. I'd like to know what the folks think here, the candidates think about developing the workforce of the future, good jobs, good paying jobs right here now. Thank you for the.
Now, before we get started, once again, I would like to go over a few ground rules that we're going to have. And the main one is cordial. We're going to, the focus of tonight's town hall is going to be people in the audience, parents, grandparents, whoever you may be. So we're going to have a couple of questions, but then, like I said, I'm going to turn it to you guys are the voters. You need to hear what's going on. So that's where we're going to go. So we're going to go ahead and get started as we, let me see, here we go. All right, here we go. The first question we're going to ask, I need my candidates, 2 minutes. But actually, the first question, I'm going to give you 3 so everybody can know who it is that, you know, who you are. Because some of these people here may not know who everybody is. So the first question, if you don't mind, give a 30-second bio really quick about yourself. Maybe take that and lead it into the answer the question. All right. So the first one is, parents want increased school safety measures, including support cameras in the classrooms and hallways. What will you do to ensure the safety of our students? And I'm going to start with Leonard Harrison on this
one. Hey guys, safety is a concern. Safety is a concern that's changed from when I was in school to everybody had a gun in the back of their truck and nobody ever got shot to. We need to make sure that the teachers, the students, everybody feels safe. I prefer people to feel safe as far as physical safety. I'm not the guy who is going to worry as much about whether somebody's intimidated by the presence of a law enforcement officer inside school. I think one thing that we need to change is we need to make sure that folks have the access. Now, are we doing the 30 seconds or are we doing 3 minutes?
Yeah, 30 seconds for your bio.
Okay.
And 2 minutes answer the question.
Okay, my bio is I'm Leonard Harrison. I'm just a vet who's made home here in the community. But, and I've got 3 kids, 2 of them have gone through Alamance Community's public school system. I'm a college graduate, I'm a small business owner. I'm a guy who cares about our community here in the area. But right now, I think safety needs to be put on notice so that we can stop alerting the school system that we've got law enforcement coming into the schools to do checks. That's a problem. You don't tell the bad guys here we're on the way. We need to address that. We don't tell the administrators, oh, by the way, we're running the dog through your school today to make sure drugs aren't in the environment where your children are. And that's what we do today, and that's a problem. And I want to make sure that that is eradicated and stopped, because I don't care one bit if a child has the, I'm sorry, this stupid thing is driving me crazy. I got hit, phone got messed up in a car. All right, but I want it to where we can just make sure that children know that their first priority is their physical safety. Because if you feel physically safe, you can be educated. Okay.
Thank you, Leonard. Do you want to begin?
No. Hello, everybody. Thank y'all for coming out. My name is Seneca Rogers. I'm an ABSS graduate and an Alamance County resident lifelong. Me and my wife Shakita has been married now 13 years, going on 14. I'm thankful every day she shows up at home because I'm married up, so I won with that one. But also on the texted me talking about they just had a bonfire in school. What am I supposed to do? I'm trying to calm her down. But that is the time that we live in today. So we have to be aware of that and work towards what that safety looks like, because our focus in school should always be on an environment where everyone feels safe so we can do the work of teaching. Thank you.
Chuck Marsh.
My name is Chuck Marsh. I'm a local business owner. I own a couple of radio stations. We just launched a radio station yesterday called Hope 104.3 because we want to share hope with Alamance County. It's a contemporary Christian radio station, some preaching and teaching. I also own a country radio station called Maverick 95.1 and 94.3. And local business owner, I live here. I have family that is in education, assistant principals and teachers as well. Going to the school safety, I actually think the folks on the school board are doing a pretty good job with, they just asked for cameras. I believe that's all in the middle schools. They're going to try to get money for cameras in the elementary schools. One of the things that really concerns me, I actually had my wife is friends with a teacher, and the teacher posted on Facebook that little boy came to her, one of her kids, says, Miss, the teacher's name, and said, I had a dream about you last night. And the teacher said, oh, could be anything. And the teacher, or the little boy said to the teacher, said, I had a dream that you took a bullet from me. This was a kid that goes to a school here at ABSS, and the teacher said, well, explain to me what happened. He said, well, an active shooter was loose at our school, and you actually stood in front of the shooter, and you took a bullet from me, so I wouldn't have to. I think it's tragic. It's just tragic that our kids are having those kind of dreams. And what was really bad was I kind of teared up, of course, as some of you guys probably are. But my wife said, I had that same dream. And she's an assistant principal at our schools. I'll tell you something that is kind of interesting to me, and you can find this information out for yourself. I'll post this on my Facebook page. But it's a link. This was pre-pandemic numbers. And when I lived in Winston-Salem, I lived across the street from a shooting or a school that had a shooting earlier this year or last year, late last year, in Winston-Salem. A student, 15-year-old student, was killed at a school in Winston-Salem. And I started thinking, I was like, man, that school is, I just was blown away that it was that kind of school because, I lived right there and I saw, the area. I mean, it's not, in an area where you would kind of expect that. Small town USA. Okay. So, oh, sorry.
Thank you, Chuck. And Mr. Charles Parker.
Charles Parker. I'm a North Carolina native, and my family. My 3 kids have gone to ABSS school, but my oldest is out, freshman at Eastern. The engineering field, one of our each student's in a very one-on-one way, big classes. So as far as school safety, let me start out by saying that I think that parents have a right to have some kind of aggregated information for school about law violations that happen in school, certain kinds of policy violations. That is a kind of safety transparency I think parents should have additional talk about curriculum. That it can be a year lag, it doesn't have, but we're comfortable with just I'd like to encourage everybody. The North Carolina Bipartisan Select Committee on School Safety did a report, and it was fantastic. So I would recommend everybody look at that. Went all across the state. I'm going to pull just a couple of those to talk about here. So the first one is that we should enhance mental health training. Enhance mental health training for SLS. That they're more than just a police officer in the school, but they really have a bigger role to play. I think that's a way to take some of the pressure off counseling where we are really short. The second thing is on district level. This is something we didn't have, but I think the important is to make a vulnerability task force, go from school to school to see where there are problems, where is it too easy to get on campus, where is it do we have. The third thing I would say is that schools should have to participate. There should be a district policy that schools participate in the district level safety. So if we have something about being able to run dogs on a certain party, there's something for active shooter training, which is a critical issue. Schools should be required. The last thing, like Chuck mentioned, we're really short on time. So having additional funding, a little bit more every year,
SROs, and then try to get to one-to-one SRO to school. And I think those are the things I'd like to emphasize. So thank you. Thank you, Charles. And before I move on to the next question, I'd like to apologize if I never introduced who I was. For y'all who don't know me, my name is Ingle. I am the leader of the Black Conservative Voices in North Carolina. I'm a COP, and I'm also the liaison for Frederick Foundation Alamance. Not only that, I'm also a 15-year combat veteran, three deployments to Afghanistan, 2 to Iraq, and 1 to Africa. That being said, I'm also a political science at the University of Virginia. And one more thing I would like to execute is kind of the time right in front of you so you can peek at it every once in a while. All right, moving on to number 2. We're going to start with Seneca on this one. How are you going to address the issues surrounding how far our students go behind academically due to COVID and remote learning?
So thinking about the remote learning and COVID and everything, it just goes me back to my nephew, where his 7th grade year, he basically spent it at our kitchen table and also in the room with me while I was working from home. So it wasn't ideal. And of course, I don't want to see us at remote. I just think at the time that was the best that we could try to do. And I commend our teachers because teaching had to become a whole different task for you. And our students showed such perseverance through that time. And they continue to show that now. And when we think about what behind is, it's not just an issue that's critical here to ABSS, it's across our whole state. Everybody's having to address this. And a part of the way of addressing that is trying to get more of our teacher assistants in our schools. Trying to make sure we do not continue losing our great certified terrific teachers that we have. I mean, I always say that the alarm is going off with what's happening with our teachers. and we can't continue to press the snooze button. Because if we continue to press the snooze button, the learning loss is going to get even worse because then we're not going to have any teachers in those classrooms. We must have those assistants, we must have those teachers, and sit down with our administrators and teachers and see what it is that is needed for our kids, what type of resources, and what do they feel like can be done to actually come up with a true plan on building that up. We can't just sit back and think that it's going to happen. We have to really address it and make it happen.
Thank you,
To the Marsh. Man, you handed this over to me first. No, as I said earlier, I have family members that are in the school system, so who else to ask but teachers and assistant principals what we can do. And they are just like, look, there's not just one answer, there's hundreds. But really the state has to get involved. This has to be a state and federal issue to figure out, you know, I was just talking to one of the parents. If you're a fifth grader, you don't have the foundations to go into sixth grade because you were remote, where you, you know, didn't learn well remotely, or you know, maybe you know, you didn't learn at all. So you're not having that. For example, the fifth grader doesn't have the foundation, so now you're asking the teachers to teach them fifth grade level stuff again, to you kind of reintroduce them to that. And then you got to also teach them the sixth grade stuff. And then you're going to test on the sixth grade stuff. So it's a mess in the way that the state still holds the teachers to, you know, they hold their feet to the fire, and they've got to get them to the sixth grade level when you missed a year. So what do? Do you say, all right, we're going to have everybody starts from where they were in 2020? Well, the kids aren't going to like that. So you're going to have to do something on a state level, on a federal level. But I think what Seneca said, you got to get the teachers involved. You got to get the people who know on the classroom levels. You and I, as parents, we have no idea what those teachers are going through. We have no idea what those kids are going through on a daily basis. Sir. Charles Parker.
So the first thing I'd like to start out with is that I absolutely agree about teachers. I think everybody can see it's a slow rolling fast as far as teacher takes. Very slow to create a teacher, and you know, it seems like now vacancies are higher. So as far as how to fix things, the truth is that it's going to be here. You know, it's maybe if I had to make up a number, it would maybe be 4 years, something like that. And it's going to be largely, I'd say, retail, but you know, I really like it's part of what I do for my day job. And what we should do with all the testing that we've done is really drill down. Okay, my kids did okay. I can check recount homework, read an essay, like support, but there are a lot of people who didn't have it. And so really looking at the data and saying, these groups did okay. You know, very specifically, these groups had a problem in math, but not English. And then these, you know, other groups really had a problem everywhere. And instead of trying to, you know, kind of scrape the resources that we have, really focus on the groups that really need it. And we know that we have data, but the data management. So it's unlike, you know, whether it was scraped over too much bread, really focus on folks. The sad thing may be that some of these things not. When I was in the third grade, I did my science school, and it was years before I was fast enough to keep up with math. And this year, so it's very difficult. You know, the other thing I'll say is, as far as testing, I understand that a lot of them are renormed this year. So you have the problem of the testing is not measuring what it's supposed to, and we don't know what they
Leonard.
Yeah, all right. I have a child who graduated in 2020,
And his explanation to me is that my senior year was good. I had no senior year at the end because I learned nothing. And this is a child that we constantly had at the table on the school stuff, doing all the virtual learning. And he walked out of there with a missed year. So that's, it doesn't matter whether you're a senior or whether you're a kindergarten, that's information you lost. And kids learn differently. There are some kids in our school system that this virtual learning was awesome. But, well, what did they get away from? They got away from bullies. They got away from this. They got away from that. And they now got to concentrate. This is my schoolwork. And I didn't have to worry about what I was wearing. I didn't have to worry about the cool stuff. But the education for the whole is we've got a lot of kids, and I've had a lot of teachers come to me and say, hey, look, we need to push back federal testing for EOGs. We need to refocus on where the kids are now. And a lot of that is going to put stress on our entire community. It's not just federal and state, it's our parents. And as much as it stinks, our parents, the level that they can involve themselves in that education and making sure Johnny's brought up to speed is going to dictate how our kids are going to move forward as a society. Because when you turn around and you say, hey, look, you go sit behind the TV and figure out how it works, for a lot of kids, that's just not working. So I think one thing we might need to do is look at, especially low-income communities, finding a way to get tutors into those communities after hours. Because after hours is when those kids will be riding their bikes and playing basketball. It might be a time that we go in and we say, hey, look, let's interject some money and find a way to give you after school education that's in your community. So you don't have to worry about how mom's going to come get you at the end of the day.
Thank you. All right, this next question.
Oh, you see.
Go ahead.
Did I not already answer?
I'll already answer.
We're not. Yeah, we're just about.
All right, before I get to this next question, we're gonna do it like this. All four of y'all on Facebook. We're gonna talk about equity here. This next question. Now, when you answer this question with equity, it's 3 different definitions. So you can answer it how you think that definition fits you. I know where it is. And it's Marxism. We see it. It's in this room. It's all through the county. So here we go to the next question. Now, when it comes to transparency, are you guys, all 4 of you, are you open to being transparent with the public when it comes to school board hirings and recommendations? And when I say that, I'm going with this guy named Jermaine Porter, who is the Director of Equity and Talent Acquisition, which the current members of the school board, some of them don't even know what that means. It's clear that they don't. So when it comes to that, are you going to push to remove the false Marxist narrative of diversity inclusion, because we know what diversity inclusion is? So are you going to push to eliminate all that nonsense, get back to reading, writing, and arithmetic, not who should be a boy, who should be a girl?
I totally would be for that. I think in another setting we talked about what a boy should be in lady sports and vice versa. And I actually had a coach that told me, he said, if boys are going to play in girls' sports, well, let's just not have girls' sports anymore. And that's kind of the way the world, the people, like the Olympic swim team, it's kind of what they're looking at now. I think on a school level, it just gets into politics, it gets into division. Doesn't matter, whether it is a black and white issue or a LGBTQ issue. I just want to teach the kids. I want to give the teachers the ability and the tools, whatever those tools are, that they can teach the kids. We have kids right now over at Graham High School. We have it's about a 38% reading level, or there's 38% of those kids that are at grade level in reading. They really should focus on, as Anthony said, the reading, writing, kind of education stuff, and kind of leave all of that politics stuff out of the schools.
So, Walker?
So, the first thing I'd like to say is that I'm for, again, as a parent, for curriculum principles that we have with learning management systems, have the ability for parents to see everything that their kids see in real time with it. So whether or not you think that there is, something coming into the curriculum or not, I think we all agree about curriculum. Question. I will say that the thing that makes people suspicious that there's something happening, if you go on for Twitter and find 1,000 videos, you say, I'm indoctrinated. Maybe that's happening, maybe it's not, but that's part of where it comes from. People see something and they're worried about what's happening, what's actually going on. And I think we could do the transparency right now, because tomorrow that something that we make available to parents. And then if they have a problem, they can talk to their parents. I've never had a problem getting access to it. And to be frank, it's parents that really monitor what's happening are generally, in my experience, not the problem, because they're really involved with their kids. Maybe disabused of that for some of the teachers, but also say, the thing that I will say as well is that there's a lot of curriculum that is that's being taught, like at the university, for instance. We know that there's a lot of discussion on some of these issues. So the two most commonly assigned teachers at the university are both, one is critical race theory, it's our main area of focus, second is equity. So we know it's in school, in the teachers' training, and the question is it coming out? And so transparency, I think, is
That transparency can be
If we can do something about providing access to cameras in class. Because cameras in class can allow the children the opportunity to discuss tough issues. They can allow parents to, at any time, view what's going on. And even if it's a safety issue, if there's a shooting in the school, parents can go online and find out what exactly is going on. So everybody would have the ability to know, hey, look, this is what's going on. I've heard horror stories from conservative parents. I've also heard from liberal teachers that it's their job to indoctrinate our kids, that are the way they determine to make our kids better citizens, to empower individuals, is the terms that the two individuals gave to. And it's my job as parents to make my child a better citizen. It's not a teacher's job to make my child a better citizen. It's my teacher's job to make my son or my daughter employable after 13 years in the education system. And the way for them to be employable is for them to learn writing, reading, and arithmetic, and some employable skill that, such as when we went through school, shop class, carpentry, HVAC. These are things that kids today are getting that are not going on for a 4-year degree. They're not having the same access that we did in every single high school. So that when they graduate from high school and they've had the misfortune to have a child early, they still have an employable skill, because it doesn't matter where we go with this. If you want to learn about every single CRT possibility under the sun, every single child in this school system, and every single parent in this school system has access to the internet. Well, go for it. Do what you want to do in your home. Got no problem with it. But when you're telling children that you're not going to be successful based on your color, based on your sexuality, you're attacking them in that form, I just can't see it something I want.
Well, when I think about diversity and inclusion, I mean, I can look around the room, I can think about us up here. We all from different walks of life, from our lived experience, but also, I mean, some people always focus in on the ethnic background, but we come from different lived experiences, right? Like Chuck is a radio person. Leonard owns a small business. Charles is over there in the lab. I work for LabCorp. So we come from a lot of different lived experiences. And that's the same way even for me growing up. My neighbors across the street, they were police officers. Our neighborhood used to get behind our kids. Our neighborhood used to wrap their arms around our school system and get involved with what's happening in our schools. And that's what we need to continue to have. And thinking about inclusion, we need everybody's voices included. That's why we need things like this to come out here and meet the people where they're at. Not wait for the people to just come to you all the time. You need to go and meet them, hear what they have to say. Regardless if it agrees with you or not, sit down with that person. I think we got to the point where sometimes we don't talk with each other anymore, we just talk at each other. And we need to stop talking at each other. And as far as the curriculum in our schools, I feel like the curriculum, is set by the state, right? And they have this standard course of study that they have to abide by. But I would love to see our curriculum here continue to expand on what we have in our CT. Continue to expand on financial literacy with our kids, to prepare them for what success looks like when they graduate, prepare them to be ready to hit the workforce running and get out here and start making the money that they want to make, be in the career that they want to be.
All right, I'm gonna say something. I'm gonna tone down some of the sniggering and stuff real quick. When I was talking about some of the stuff I see with the books and the curriculum with CRT and stuff, I'm gonna ask you a question. Have you ever heard of an organization called Facts Task Force? But there is an organization called Facts Force 2.0, which is fights indoctrination. I know because my beautiful wife, Mamie Brooks, has done a lot of work behind the scenes putting this together. She's unable to be here tonight. So when you're giggling and snickering, take time out and be like, gee, let me talk to Anthony and see what he's talking about. Come to my office, open my laptop. I got all kinds of stuff you can snicker at. It's probably based at your kids. Speaking in general, if I didn't address you, I probably wouldn't address the person. Who are you? Well, it must matter because you got something to say while I'm talking.
Gentlemen, let's continue, okay? Appreciate you. Bye.
Anyway, come to my office and let me show you all these reports of some of the stuff that your kids are probably learning. See if you're snickering at that. Next question. All right, now this next question actually kind of take this personal because I have a daughter that went to the atrocity called Graham High School. Disgusting. Shut down. And so what I mean by that is when it comes to equal funding, that seems to be a big issue among parents. I know this. And what I mean by that, look at the different demographics. Some schools in these neighborhoods look like this. Some schools in these neighborhoods may look like this. Why are they not all looking the same? And what can we do to distribute funds so the schools in the lower income demographics have the same access to education that the schools in the upper towns may have? Because there is differences. I know because I've witnessed. So the question actually is, what are you willing to do to make sure that funds are dispersed evenly throughout all the schools so everybody has equal opportunity?
Thanks. So I'm going to give maybe a little bit of the answer, but satisfying. I was thinking about this question for a while. So the pictures are paid from, there's basically a common of bus driving, their steps. The physical print of the school. Some schools are newer, some gone through the support questions with the if you need to replace a roof because they replaced a lot of this is how the capital improvements are decided somewhat by the decision making. have recommendation. School board thinks something important, they can elevate it. Different schools. It looks like there's a process, and I know the outcome is a process to make things close. May not look as good as others. And I really, like to talk to some teachers about this. Toyota has something called 5 whys, where if you ask why 5 times, so it's the door has a problem. Okay, the door has a problem. Why is that? Well, it's because it's on Friday afternoon. Why is that? Going home and they're not focused on it. So, by the time you get to that number, so if there's that are worse than others, I would be very interested in get into the bottom of the 5 lines. It looks like there's a process in place where you try and make things as good as possible.
But when you're asking that question, are you talking about on the education level?
Yes, sir, all the way around. It's just kind of confused.
So we do a lot of testing. It seems like my wife, who used to be a testing coordinator, it seemed like she was always talking about testing. They're testing and they're testing and they're testing. So if we're doing all of this testing, we would know that this school is maybe not performing as well as this school, and maybe another school is performing a lot better than another. I think that what we have to do as a community is you have to look at the schools who are not performing as well, and you have to shift money. Maybe it's a teacher shortage. What is that? Is it counseling? Maybe there's some kids that are having some issues just kind of, going throughout the day. You have to really kind of look at, what is the dynamics of that school? How are the kids learning? Is there again, the teacher shortage? Maybe, maybe are there enough computers for the kids? Are they in East Burlington and there's kids that they don't have Wi-Fi capability and they're supposed to have the hotspots, and we're not providing them hotspots in that school. I think it's just a case by case basis, and you got to reallocate that money, and you got to make sure that you're loving on these kids, and you're making sure that each one of these kids is learning to their best ability.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So when I think about this, it's an issue, right? Because we need to make sure that our schools get the funding that they need, which is really a big thing for me. Because I've been sending emails to our state legislators, county commissioners, stood up at the county commission to talk to them about the budgets that are getting approved for our schools. And a lot of this depends on what our state does, right? We need to pay what's going on with the Andrew thing. Also, where it shows that our schools were not giving our kids a sound basic. Think about it. Sound basic not being provided. So we need to legislators to really not hold our schools hostage to that type of funding. Go ahead and give up that funding that is needed. Listen to these principals, listen to these superintendents when they're telling you our schools need it. Come and visit some of these schools and look around what's in there. You can see what is needed in that school. Don't just sit back from the rattler seats and not get down there and get your hands dirty with our actual school system. And then also, our county commissioners, we have to continue that whole partnership between our school board and county commissioners, because the county commissioners continue to pick up the slack of what the state is not doing. And they continue to try to do that every year. And I feel like there is a good collaboration right now, but it has to go even further. That's why I said we have to really push our state forward on what they do, because I do not want to continue to see school over here so much and another one doesn't. But I do know too, there's a lot of community support around certain schools. So you need to go out and touch those people that are around those communities for those schools and tell them, hey, wrap your arms around this school and bring up these kids, bring up these kids. That's different. So we can all
Well, I can't disagree with any of the three said. I've gone out and I've started visiting schools, I've started visiting the neighborhood. One thing that I've heard overwhelmingly is there's no longer pride in community for the schools. And I talked to a young lady who was just across from Williams. She literally says it's been 27 years since she's been on the campus, across the street from her house. And it amazes me when I grew up, they all had pride in our school. For the most part, of my experience, I've been fortunate. I was brought up on military bases until I moved to North Carolina in '82, and then my kids went to military bases. They had that access, but it amazes me that we have lost a lot of that pride. You've got to do something about that. When you go into a school and you see the paint's chipping off the wall, that's a problem. Never saw that growing up. You go into a school and you see on the back side of it, you've got busted windows still. Well, why haven't those issues been addressed? Well, it all boils down to money. And it might be the fact that we have to actually realize maybe it's time to step up and start doing something in the community and having community groups. They go, you know what, this weekend we're going in and we're going to paint at this school. That takes people going out of their community, going to another school and saying, this school needs it, it's in our county, let's get it done and work on it. Because it doesn't matter whether I like this child's parents' politics or that child's parents' politics, because at the end of the day, every one of these children are going to be our community at some point, providing children to this community again and over and over. And I want it to stop. I want us to work together and go, wait a minute. Hey, look, this school, Williams, it is a school that when I visited just recently, I looked at it and I went, gosh, what's going on? And that's something we can't address. If it's not the school system, maybe it's parent groups going this weekend, work projects, let's do it. And if we're Christians, if we're believers, we all are one thing.
Well, like I said, when this first started, this is basically about you guys. So we're gonna go into the Q&A here. Here's your chance. Ask whatever concerns you have, ask candidates individual questions. But I do ask you to be respectful when you're asking them questions, and you will receive respect back. If not, then it is what it is. Yeah, you can. And I ask that you keep your questions kind of short so we can get as many people as we can.
You can ask from wherever they are.
Why? Got the most qualified, but we barely are right now.
Well, to be honest with you, after talking to the teachers and talking to the struggles that they're dealing with, the teachers that I've spoken to have said the number one issue is not the teachers, it's not the curriculum, it's parental involvement. And the thing that stresses them out is the fact that one of the educators I spoke to, that's an educator at Eastern Alamance High School, informed me at her last 2 parents-teacher conferences, the most she had was 4 parents. Now, when you're teaching 4 classes, 30 kids apiece, and 4 parents show up, it is not acceptable as a parent to not show up, but with a caveat, because some parents go, look, 5 to 7 is not going to work for me. I am a single parent. This is what's going on. We need to find a way, even if it's virtual parent-teacher conferences. Because if Jane has 3 kids and she has no husband at home, how do we expect her to go to the school and take care of them? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Again, if you have a question that you want to address with individual candidate, you can do that as well. It doesn't have to be a group. You can pick one out.
But yes, like you said, we got to get the parents back involved. I mean, I have a campaign slogan that says, "We are the neighborhood." And that is about the community getting back involved in our schools. Like I said, the community has to wrap their arms back
these schools. I think about when I grew up, if my parents couldn't show up for me with something in school, if we had a program, my neighbor showed up. If my parents couldn't take me to school, my neighbor took me to school. We would drop off each other and wrap our arms around each other. We have to do that. It's not that hard. It's not that hard to care about your neighbor, regardless of the fact of what their politics is and everything. I mean, I'm pretty sure my father and my neighbor and his neighbor didn't have the same political views, but they got along with each other. They cared about each other. They cared about what was going on in their household or with their kids. So that's what we need to get back to. Thank you.
So, recently, I think it's really, the schools and the teachers have really taken a hit. When you drive by, actually, we had a company that is Chick-fil-A hit me up and they said, we're doing a $2,000 sign-on bonus and we're paying up to $21 an hour starting wage. I think that kind of has a little bit to do with it too. The teachers, they could go and work with Chick-fil-A and not have to have all of the testing and all of the, the issues and the drama and state level, making them teach, go back to the example of fourth graders or fifth graders having to learn fifth grade stuff and sixth grade stuff as they, roll into sixth grade. I think that has a lot to do with it. I'd go to work for Chick-fil-A if it was me.
Charles, Parker.
Right, thanks. So, better by the end.
You got it.
I don't have anything else to add from the standpoint of parental involvement. It's absolutely critical. As far as children achieving, they need someone who says, you need about 7 hours of sleep. Have to do your homework or something like that. Or there's some things the school can do. As far as eating. When I was young, the breakfast program was not a big thing nowadays. But there are also some things that are, I hate to say intractable, but there are some things that are very hard to fix that are have the nature of the way things are set up in the state. So you can do the best you can. You can try it. It's an approach, but one thing is there have a high fraction of people who stand to. That's one thing. So.
Thank you. Ms. Patty Simpson.
My question, my perception before I got on what I could do and how I could do it is totally different once you become a school board member. But the one thing I didn't give up is the fact that I said I would advocate for all children. Now, my question is, I've listened to some of the things that you're saying, but as a school board member, your most important rule of thing to do is governance. I need you to explain to me, knowing that you just can't change the state testing as a school board member, as some of you have alluded to. You can't just create dollars and get them. You have to use governance to get the job done. So could you explain to me, what do you see as governance and the role of a board member versus that of a superintendent?
What did you say? What did you
So as far as the school board, they say set policy, hire the superintendent, make the budget, right? I think a critical thing, something that is important to be a conduit. We'll talk about open door policies to be ready to hear something from anyone at any point. So I think if someone said, what are you proud of as a board member? That one. Students, I don't use it as much. The students administrators, anybody of voter or bring that information forward and maybe I don't answer. So I'm aware that the board has some limited knowledge they confirm, but I think being a conduit information that has to be
To kind of reiterate what he said, being that conduit, have conversations with our county commissioners all the time. I have talks with Dennis Riddell and Amy Gailey and Falwell, who is the first strings guy on the radio. Probably once a week he calls in, and I've had conversations with him about this and those people. And I think that is the thing that we've got to do is communicate. We've got to say, hey, look, that we have 500 children to one counselor right here in Alamance County. 288 counselors to one student in a county just down the road from us that there was a school shooting. Maybe we should talk about bringing some more counselors. You got to communicate. Thank you, so.
But the school board, like Mr. Parker has taken the role of hiring the superintendent, setting the budget, and setting policy. So within that policy, you got to make sure you're setting great policy for our school system. But then you're hiring a superintendent that is supposed to incorporate that policy that you have set. So that's a big role for that superintendent. The board members have to continue to be that connection to the community because you're voted on by the people. So you have to continue to listen to the people, while the superintendent needs to continue to be the face of your school system and make sure that they're creating a team that's going to implement that policy that you're setting in your strategic plan that you set for your school system. That's why the superintendent's role is important, but the board member's role is to answer to you, and they have to continue to do that.
I think governance is absolutely imperative because policy is what will feed all the way down. But we have to make sure, as far as that there is a defined difference, we do understand it as members of the Board of Education. You do define that policy. That does not mean that you cannot be involved in your community. That does not mean you cannot get out there and say, hey, look, let's do something outside of the school board to get parents involved and get it back in so that all of our kids come in the right direction. So governance and policy is absolutely imperative, but we have to make sure that we know what those lines that are legal that we define and that are ethical that we define, so that all the way through the kids feel like that it's one team and they understand that we're answerable to even the children. And if the guy's a kindergartner and he has a question, we should be willing to answer it. But that involves making sure that we have that open door, and so that we have those connections open to Raleigh, so that we have those connections right here in our community.
Andrea.
Several speakers about the importance of the superintendent's role as the chief executive officer. With that in mind, do you support the secret process of hiring a superintendent, and how would you change that process moving forward?
Well, the process for hiring the superintendent, I think you have to take everything into account, right? Because if you do open that completely up for everyone, is that gonna hinder what people that you get to apply? I don't think that it should hurt them if they are in a different county to apply for that job, but some people feel like it will hurt. So you need to talk that out and weigh out the pros and cons with that, because you want whoever applies to be your superintendent to be the best candidate, period. I think that you do have to basically make it almost like a hybrid type of system. That's what I would like to see. It's almost where it's hybrid, to where the applicants
are gonna apply, you might not see them, but then you open it up for the public to have their input, to see who these candidates are, and to give more of that input in to you on who these candidates that they are looking at. I think you have to, it's almost like a happy medium that you have to put into that too.
I totally agree with what he said. I think that especially when you get to a point where you got the top five, then you kind of have narrowed down to where we have a pretty good pool of folks that we know that we're going to hire. We're leaning towards the top five. Then you kind of open it up, as he said, and you allow the parents to be like, you know what, I knew that guy from when I lived in South Carolina, and this and this and this. Maybe it's somebody that's a family friend to somebody from the community that shed some light. Maybe it's somebody that the teachers in ABSS would really rally behind them, and we could have a better employee morale than what we have right now.
Great, so I'd like to start out and say that anybody, terrible, because I would like to have someone go somewhere else and have a better job because I went there if I ever need something. Now, that said, I think I've been involved in recruitment, and it is an issue. So I think the thing that I thought about as well is what can we have done? So I would say yes, I'll make you certified. But when you get to the last point, they've been asked a lot of questions. Okay? I think those answers should be public. Just think creatively about how much we can make public without damaging the questions that they answered. Maybe their interview. If you're congressional Senate, your answers and your questions. So I think as much as we can make public without damaging.
Thank you.
Okay, basically, you're right. I mean, we need to make sure that the beginning of the process is something that while they're feeling they're putting their toes into the water, they can have some privacy so that if they find out, hey, look, I don't want to take a chance of making this public so that I lose my job where I am. But at the same token, we are the buyers. How many buyers out there, or how many times do you go out there and say, hey, look, I want to buy a car? Go out, look for a car. Don't tell me what you like about it. Don't tell me what you don't like about it. But at the end of the day, I'll pay for it. And that's what we're doing with our superintendent search when we don't allow citizens of this area to know what's going on. So at some point, when we get past, they will have to understand there will be public questions that are going to be asked because the public needs to know what they're buying as taxpayers, parents, and kids.
All four of you are asking questions. Unaffiliated voters in Alamance have a large voter block. With over 70% of voters claiming they want partisan politics out of the support election. And it plans to satisfy the voters and these voters and stances for partisan politics.
Well, mine has been a little bit partisan. I'll admit that. But I think that, what aggravates me is just some of the things that is just so obvious. And that's what I've kind of put out there on social media. When we set out almost to divide in a way, and that's something that's kind of under the bridge, but there's been school board members that have in the past kind of divided the parent pool. Like a great example was the monument. Okay, to me, I personally don't think that I have a say or I should make a stance on something that is very heated politically, like the monument was. And every one of the school board members that are currently on there, except for Ryan, Donna, and Sandy, all signed that they would have the monument removed. And I just don't think that was a place for a school board member.
Great, so, I am. Someone says, I think I have a better way to do something for Davis. Or something I can be argued out. I've changed a lot of my thoughts when I've done. I have, you know, a view towards the world, but the goal of the school board as far as setting policy is the correct policy. You know, and it may be different. And sometimes, you know, it's ambiguous, like would be better to have 3 more SROs. And some things are more controversial, and that's really the sense of voters and that. But I really very much try to choose the right thing each time.
Great question. I do think that nonpartisanship in the school board speaks to that. I mean, that's the reason why I run for the school board. It's because it's a nonpartisan race. I don't feel like that our schools, like I said before, should continue to be held in this crossfire of politics and division. That doesn't need to happen. That's not going to allow for our kids to be successful. We continue to do that. If we continue to just sit on this one side and be like, I'm in this corner with everybody who agrees with everything I'm saying, and not listen to anybody from that other side, then we're not looking at everything through everyone's lens. Because when you come to the table with people who might have a different view from you, you might get a different perspective. You might see something in a different way. So we need to continue to make sure our school boards stay nonpartisan. Because if they get into a partnership, it's going to be traffic on pictures.
Well, everybody who knows me knows that I am a staunch conservative. That's a fact. That's where my ideology comes. I'm a military child, turned into a military member who raised military kids. That's just the way it is with me. But also understand the fact that I do a lot of reaching across the aisle and understand the other side's opinion on just about anything. But being human is being partisan. We're all born to be. But that's what you keep in here. What you have to do to manage is how you work out issues that are not, how divisive you become in working out those issues. Because I think school boards are about 3 things: writing, reading, and arithmetic. That's what they need to focus on. The political stuff, and I have no problem with a teacher discussing a political issue. It's when they downgrade the other side for having a different opinion. That's when I have the problem.
Similar question. I was glad that some of the candidates brought up the role of the state and what they play, right? Along with everything, the sort of all public schools being partners to school boards and county commissioners. The Liaison plan is a part of that conversation. And so a lot of what's often these comments has been around how we're leading, right? Across the state, especially the county. So a lot of what when I see people across the state are working about being the stress, mental health, disrespect, and just all the extras beyond it. So I want to hear from the candidates around how you're going to inspire yourself out.
As far as the recruitment of the reason people keep jobs, they feel like there's something that they can't control. They're being asked to do what's reasonable. I've spoken to a lot of teachers, and it seems like, unfortunately, as far as retention, a lot of it is very school specific traits. So the thing that you would worry about with our class is going to be something different than a high school science. Probably the best thing is really great principles. And that's something the superintendent does. Personnel policy. So as far as I will say that during the COVID situation, it seemed like things changed a lot. I know a lot of teachers were burning out trying to figure out what to do with today. But really, it's good principles.
Thank you.
So to kind of follow up what Charles was saying, I think it is leadership from the very top all the way down to the bottom, meaning that the school board has to support the superintendent. Superintendent's got to support the administrators. Administrators have to support the teachers. And I think at some point there's a disconnect. I'm not 100% sure where that is, whether that's at the administration, the central office, or what. But there's a lot of teachers that are very frustrated because they don't get heard and we're not listening to them. It's time when we start listening to them and worry about getting them paid more, worry about loving on the teachers and making sure that they are a focus of the community. Like so many of you guys have said, we come and help them, raise the money for classroom projects. Let's all get together and do that. Thank you.
So recruitment and retention of teachers is a big thing. Like currently in ADSS, we have the Elon Fellows program, but I think we need to expand that even more too. We need to expand that to more schools. We need that Fellows program back, but also we need to treat the teachers as professionals that they are. Right? We need to start with that. Treat them like the professionals that they are in their in their environment, set the great culture for our teachers. The teachers are out here. I remember back when everything hit and we went remote, everybody was talking about our teachers are heroes. Our teachers are heroes. Our teachers are doing this. They never stop being heroes. They're still heroes today. And we have to treat them like those heroes that they are. But also we need to sit down and talk with them, talk to some of our senior teachers who've been here and be like, so what continues to keep you here? What can we do better for you? What can we provide to you? Don't just sit there and tell them, take care of yourself. Find out from them what it looks like to take care of yourself.
Well, I think number one, we need to listen. And we talk about teachers being involved in our school system and being involved in what's going on and how they feel this present idea of the new pay differential, going to a new pay system and getting rid of merit pay, getting rid of other things that are affecting teachers. I'm hearing teachers furious over this new pay idea. And the fact that the individual Dr. Tomlinson informing the public that, hey, look, once they get 5 years, they're no longer growing as a teacher in their ability. Well, some of my best teachers were 30 years in teaching. So I have to say that's probably not accurate. So I think we need to push as a community, as board members, and speak to these individuals who are making these decisions and saying, hey, look, evidently somewhere along the way you lost your path because you're not speaking to teachers. Because it doesn't matter whether it's teachers from the left, the right, the middle, they're all telling me the same thing. This new pay scale is disrespectful as all get.
Thank you.
Yes, where I'm asking a question. Yes, I grew up in Virginia. Down here with so you have in North Carolina, all elected, all hired. Got a state organization. North Carolina, Texas, have no state level. Next comes to local school boards. Real change. So this is fine. Because the one thing I think we might be politically divided.
Yes.
I don't care what's the what color your skin is, I'll take down. Hear this. Further to what I'm saying, if you ever vote against the state, you would consider bad or curriculum part of state taxes. You bring down something, because guys, there are people in this room right now. Group at places where they were told books don't lie, teachers don't lie. The hell they don't. They lie all the time. They lie every day. To everybody in this room. If you think you know history, start research. You're blind. So yes.
Let's talk.
Remember our vote against the state's committee.
Absolutely. And the thing is, I think that would be, regardless of which candidate you're talking about, if they don't agree with what's coming down. The beautiful thing about North Carolina in respect to local is our curriculums are all still at the end of the day controlled in school systems through our Constitution locally. And we have power that other states don't have, that it's not distributed locally. So parents right here on your block don't have as much to say as they do in a state like Virginia, or they do in a state like South Carolina. We have we're stuck in the middle, and somehow the kids in Virginia are doing better than the kids in South Carolina and the kids in North Carolina. So what it is imperative to me that we speak out with a voice that we know who our reps are and say, hey, wait a minute, this is our collective as 7. We're saying this is wrong or this is right and go down this path. And one of those things that we need to do is make sure that that is done regardless of whether we agree on this, we find a consensus.
Thank you.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I want to see a curriculum that is setting up our kids for success. What success looks like when they graduate from school. That's why I do love our CT. I love it so much on all the things they offer, but we need to expand on that CT. Make sure that we have people ready once they graduate with the diploma to go into the workforce, go into college, if it's to go into a trade school, whatever that looks like for them. We cannot set our kids as they are just a standard thing when everything is on the same level. Kids learn different. Us as individuals, we learn different. We have different goals and things that we want to set. So you have to have a curriculum that allows for that to happen. I guess that's just all I
Totally agree with what you said. Our future leaders are the kids that we are teaching today. So we don't want to have a bunch of folks that are morally corrupt, morally bankrupt. We want to have future leaders that can lead Alamance County into the next years to come. So I would totally be against something that would go against what we're talking about. So.
So in the hypothetical, would you not implement something that you thought was not good? I think we can all imagine if we're that, for something. As far as a specific case, I don't know how that works. We all have to decide as adults what we're willing to get in trouble. That everyone goes home with work that's undone. You have to decide what part of that work I've done, or what thing I've done. To put kind of a feel on it, my comment. So I've had a lot of kids go through Caulfield, and I've heard the teacher that the principal there provides aircom. That there's a lot of things pulled back and there's things from not doing things that are more administrative.
Thank you.
That's next question. Who's that gentleman down there? You go.
I think uniting everybody together as a community, the morale of teachers is pretty low. And what is that? Does that mean that they're not happy with their employer, or they're not happy with the school board? It could be a bunch of different things, but uniting the school board, standing behind the superintendent, supporting the principals, supporting the teachers, and just loving on kids and getting those scores up, whatever that takes. If it takes community leaders, all the putting in some money to, do after school programs, whatever that is, that would be what I would like